Hi, I'm Trevor Conkergood from Sunset Stitches. Welcome to the DVD video guide for Artistic Monogram software. This video is going to be my quick start guide to the program, and my goal with this video is to show you how to use as many of the tools and features as possible so that you can begin using your embroidery software right away. I'm going to overview the workspace and go through some of the most important functions of the software. And then after the quick start guide, I'll follow up with a series of shorter and more specific videos that will each show a specific tool or function of the software. You'll also find on the DVD video guide a printable PDF index page that will help you find all of the different contents of this video program. Now I'd like to invite you to visit my website, www.sunsetstitches.com, where you can learn more about me and the different videos that I've produced about embroidery and embroidery software. And if you'd like to get a hold of me personally, then this is my email address, trevor@sunsetstitches.com. So what I'm going to do now is just come back and prepare myself to begin the quick start video guide. Well, to begin our quick start guide, I thought I would show you simply the open button or open tool here found on the top of the workspace. So when I click open, this window opens up, and inside of this window, well, basically you have the ability to travel specifically to recent places in your computer. Up here at the top, you've got a little window with a triangle that you can sort of click on to open up and allow you to browse to the different locations or folders of your computer. Now I'm looking in a folder that is the Creative Monogram samples, and it's just found under my public documents of my computer. And what you'll find inside of that folder is that there's a few draw files, and I just wanted to point that out, that when you use the Artistic Monogram software, what we create, our sort of basic file, is a .draw file, and these are some that were installed with the program. And so if I click on them, then you'll see that it'll give you a preview of what that's supposed to look like or what the design would look like. And then once you select one, you could choose open. And before I open it, actually, I'll just show you that it tells me the name of it, and right here I can open files of type just simply draw files. So when you create embroidery, it's very important to always save a copy of it in draw, and then you'll be able to open it later if you need to make any changes or edits. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up this design. So continuing on with, I guess, just the quick start guide, we just opened up this embroidery design, and you can see that it's displayed here on my screen. Now perhaps what I could do is just give a small sort of overview of the workspace, and I guess the first thing I'll point out is, see, we just opened up this design, but we had a design that was previously open. It was the one that had my name on it, and so I'll just point out right here on this toolbar, you can see that we just opened up number 4 draw, but we also have a tab here behind that for an untitled design that we had started, and if I click on that tab, you can see that I still have that design available. So I guess the point is, you can have multiple embroidery designs open on your screen at the same time. Now, like any Windows embroidery software, you will have drop-down menus, and I'll just quickly show the drop-down menus, and I'll be coming back to talk about all the different tools and features that are found on these drop-down menus, most of which have buttons on the toolbars. But there are some things that are found specifically in the drop-down menus, and it's my goal to go through as much of the program as I possibly can. So those are the drop-down menus, and then these are the toolbars that you'll find. So up here at the top, you've kind of got your standard sort of new, open, save, print, cut, copy, and paste, undo, redo. These are buttons to select fabric, to edit your color palette, to control your embroidery hoop. This sort of tells me how zoomed in I am, and I guess there's probably a little arrow that I could specifically go to a zoom percentage like that. Now, beside that, this tool can actually be very helpful, especially when you're first learning. It's basically a help tool. If I use it, for example, if I just click on that help tool, notice that my mouse now has a question mark attached to it. And at this point, if I was to click on any of the other tools on the toolbar, for example, right next to this question mark is the alignment tools, I'll click on the alignment tools. And what you'll see, and I'll just need to bring that into view, is that the help text opens up, and I'll just make it a little bit larger so it's easier to see. And it specifically went to the help text for aligning objects and telling us how to use the tool that I clicked on. So this is found under the help drop-down menu where you have your help topics. But in this case, it specifically went, because I used, I'll just close this, because I used this tool, the help tool, and then you click on something you want to learn about, like the transform tool here on the toolbar on the left, it'll come up with the rectangle selection tool in the help menu. So you have the ability to go through your help menu and search the index, or search for a specific word, like I guess selection or applique or whatever you want to, monogram, and it's going to show you the contents. Or you can just simply browse all the different chapters of the contents and find what you want to look for, and the content will be shown in this side. So that help menu and this help interface is going to be very beneficial, especially when you're first learning, as a follow-up to the video guide for further learning. So like I said, these are some alignment tools which I'll be showing how to use in one of the additional videos. Now over here on the left we have a toolbar that's used for selecting, editing, and creating embroidery objects. So I'll just go through the tools. We've got the rectangular selection tool. Then underneath that we've got an edit shape nodes tool. You've got a zoom tool. We've got your measuring or ruler. This one's for adding directions, and this is called divide. This is a slow redraw tool. Here we've got an edit text tool and an edit monograms tool and the auto sequence control tool. And I'll be showing how to use all of these tools throughout this video. Here on the workspace you can see the embroidery design, and just off to the left you've got your sequence manager, and right now that's shown with everything in just one tray, and I'll be talking about how to use the sequence manager, but for now I'll even show you can just simply use this little arrow to kind of roll it up and hide the contents of your sequence manager, and then you can easily use that same little, I guess, triangle to show the contents of your sequence manager. And if you don't want the sequence manager on your screen, you can use the little X here to close it. Now if you close a toolbar like that, you'll be able to find them again by going to your View menu, Toolbars, and you'll be able to see all of the menus that are turned on. And for the Sequence Manager, it actually has its own option under the View menu, Sequence Manager here, and I'll just turn it back on again. So that's the idea. And in fact, the entire workspace, I'm just going to close that, is customizable. And what I mean by that, just as an example, all of the toolbars have a little dotted line. It's like a handle for them, and when you go over top of that little dotted line, see how my mouse becomes a multi-directional arrow? Well, if I click and drag right at the time my mouse is over that multi-directional arrow, I can bring that toolbar off of the space that it was, and I could make it a floating toolbar that could be put anywhere I want. I could give it a different location, so if I'd rather it be on here on my left side, I can stick it there. So you get to control where your toolbars go. And also, so that's the toolbars, and you can move them, and like I said, you can open them, or for that matter, if you want to, you could close them. If I didn't want the alignment toolbar, I could bring it off my workspace, then come to the X and close it. And like I said before, if you go to the View drop-down menu for toolbars, then we can see that my align bar has been turned off, and I could turn that back on again, and I could put it back into place again. Now here you have a space called Tool Options, and generally speaking this will be blank until you have something selected. So if I start a tool, you'll notice if I just even click on the Edit Text tool that the tool options for the Edit Text tool become available. And if I use this select tool here, this rectangular selection tool, and I'm just going to go and click on this ABC, then the tool options for this monogram object become available. So the idea is tool options are going to be one of the ways that you can control the embroidery objects and how the tools work. And when you have nothing selected, there's simply no tool options available. And it's very much the same with the object properties over here on the right. This is where if I select an object like this monogram, I'll have the ability to set the type of fill with the fill tab and the type of outline with the outline tab. And we'll talk about the different types of stitches and how to control these things. So like I said, if you don't have anything selected, so to let go of this object that's selected, I am just going to simply click outside of the at an empty area of my workspace, and it lets go of the tool or of the object that was selected, and so therefore there's nothing in my object properties, nothing in my tool options. Also on the workspace down at the bottom, you've got your color palette, and these are the default colors that you could choose from. You'll see there's a small arrow here. There's more default colors. I can scroll through. There's several, I guess, pages of them. And you can, I'll show you later in the video how you can customize what color palette you have, whether it be just, these are just the standard RGB colors. We can actually choose from specific brands of embroidery thread for the color palette. And down at the very bottom of the color palette, this shows me my current design. And I can see here that this design has this red color and this black color, as you can see in the design. So that's what this is here. And then down below that, there's an information bar. And basically, this is going to tell you things like the number of items or objects in your design, the size, number of colors, estimated number of stitches. So yeah, that's I guess, general description of the workspace. One more thing before I move on from kind of the overview of the workspace. I'd said how we can customize the toolbars to move them. Well, these tool options and object properties can also be customized a little bit. And I'll just show you, take a close look at right here, the little push pin that's shown on the object properties toolbar. Well, if I was to click on that push pin, it says auto hide, and I'll click on it. And what it does is it takes that object properties toolbar and it rolls it up. It docks it. And see, if I mouse over top of the tab for it, it shows me the box, but if I click away, it rolls it back up and hides it. So it puts it away like that. And I can do the same thing for my tool options. I can just auto hide it like this, and it'll roll the tool options up at the top. And then when I want them again, I simply mouse over top of the tab to see the contents of that. So doing that basically gives you more available workspace here in the center to work with. So that's called docking a toolbar. And if you want to undock it, well, then you're going to go back over top of the tab to show the toolbar, and then you come back to that little push pin, and this time it says show the toolbar, and I'll click on it, and it just opens it back up. And same thing with object properties. Click on it, and so I can stick them open, or I can auto hide them. So that's a little bit more about exploring the workspace. And what I'm going to do is just now regather my thoughts and prepare to start a new design and go through some of the important functions of the program. Okay, so before I create a new monogram, I also thought I would show how to save your design. So I've already shown how to open a design, and under the File drop-down menu, you have the ability to save, which I guess is grayed out at the moment because the design I have just opened is already saved. If I made some sort of a modification to it, then I could simply save it. Saving it would save it as the same name and the same location. But you also have the ability to choose Save As. And when you choose Save As, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Little window opens up, gives you the ability to choose where you want to save it to. So right now it came up by default to the location where I'd opened the design from, which was in the Creative Monogram samples that were installed with the program. But I could choose any of the folders in my computer. So if you'd like to create your own folder to save your own embroidery designs to, that might not be a bad idea. Put it in a place like your My Documents folder that's easy to find, and you'll always know where your work is. Now, when it chooses Save As, I can save this as a draw file. And like I'd explained earlier, that's the important format to keep, because you'll be able to go back to that and edit it. But our embroidery machine doesn't stitch out a draw file. You're going to need to create a different format. It may be Janome Jeff or some other type of embroidery format. And so here, when you choose Save As, you have the ability to choose from a list. So you can name your design. So it's called 4. Why don't I just call it, I guess, number 4 dash new, whatever you give it your name, 4 for hats or whatever you want to call it. And then you can give it, by the way, I could call it ABC. I don't know, the number 4 was just a numbered thing. We'll call it Trevor. It doesn't say Trevor, but design will be called Trevor. And, oops, I clicked on the hide. This just shows us the browse folders and the hide folders option with this button here. But what I wanted to show you was the type of format. So yes, I can save it as a draw file, but after I saved it as a draw file, then I may also want to take it to my embroidery machine, in which case I may want to choose from the large list of embroidery formats. So we could go with commercial formats like SWF or Tajima, or many different domestic formats, Singer, Brother, Janome. And so you would come in and choose your format. So if I said I wanted to save it as a Jeff file, and then I can save it. And so I would have made, oh, actually, and there's one more step. It asks me just to select the machine to use for its helps the software in, I guess, some specific things about the format and how to save it. So if you know what kind of machine you've got, Janome Generic, or if you've specifically got a 10,000 or 350E, then you can actually select your machine and then say OK. And it saves the design and tells you the number of stitches. And then you would be able to go and, I guess, browse specifically to that folder of your computer and just use drag and drop to put that design onto your USB stick or your PC ATA card to take it over to your embroidery machine. However you normally like to transfer designs to your embroidery machine. So I thought I would show Save As, because yes, you want to always save your design as a draw, but then you're going to also need to make a copy of it in an embroidery format that's what you're going to use for your embroidery machine. So, okay, now what we're going to do is start a new design, and I can either go to the File drop-down menu and say New, or I can just use the New button here on the toolbar, so I'll say New. Now when I say New, the very first step the software asks us to do, I guess it's sort of like a little bit of a wizard when you say New. It just takes you through a few steps. And the first step is select your fabric. And this is an important step because the software will use these basic styles of fabric choices to help prepare the design. In other words, when you create some lettering or monogram, the density and the underlay are going to be decided based on the type of fabric that you've chose. So, for example, here we've got embroidery smooth, and then we've got embroidery ultralight, embroidery light, embroidery normal light, embroidery normal, and embroidery heavy. So if I wanted to go ahead and choose embroidery normal, you also have the ability, I guess, to expand these and choose from, in this case, there's just simply the standard choices. But in some cases, specifically if you go to like upgrading to the Artistic Suite software, you'll have other choices for types of embroidery normal fabric, I guess. But in this case, it's just sort of the standard choices. So embroidery normal would be a very good choice. You can go with embroidery light, and I'll show in a later video how you can see the differences in the way that the software reacts to the type of fabric choice. So one way or another, that's your first step. Choose embroidery normal, and then you can also choose the color of the fabric, so the way that it's displayed on your screen, it can be blue or whatever color that you'd like to choose, and then say next. Now it wants to know here, are we going to create a new monogram, or do we just want to create a new graphic, which would basically just give us an empty workspace that we could then use our tools to create embroidery into. So we'll go ahead with the new monogram interface to begin with. And the other choice on this window is embroidery hoop. And I can leave this set for none, or if I pop the list up, it'll show me a list of pre-programmed embroidery hoops that we could choose from. And so if I wanted to, and if I knew that I wanted to use, for example, the Janome 140 by 200 hoop, I could select on that and then say next. So now it comes to this monogram interface, and you have several things that you can control here, and I'm just going to move this over so you can start to see what I've got. So the first thing I've got is a width and a height, and the checkbox to keep them proportional. So just as an example, if I change the width to be from 3 inches to 4 inches, it automatically adjusts the height because it's checked off to be proportional. If I chose to turn it unproportional, then that would give me the ability to make the height, for example, 3 inches specifically, and the width 4 inches specifically, so it does not maintain the proportions of the, I guess, original shapes of the letters. And in this case, I have other things that are selected. So the first thing is the width and height. This is the text interface. This is where you put in your text. So I have it typed in TRE, but it could be probably more likely to be initials like A, B, C, or obviously any 3 letters that you want to put in there is what you use for a monogram. So you type in your 3-letter monogram. And because I've got it unchecked for proportional, then what it's doing is it's telling me how much it's stretching it. Now I have the ability to choose the font, and right now it's set on Arial Narrow. If I wanted to, I could choose from a drop-down list, and these are actually the fonts that are installed in my computer. So any TrueType font that you have installed in your computer will work with Artistic Monogram software, which is really great news because there's lots of free TrueType fonts that you can download and install into your computer, and so really it makes it almost unlimited, the style and the type of embroidery that you can create using Artistic Monogram software. So yeah, you choose your font from a drop-down list, and then you need to choose a template. And in this case, you can see that I've got template number 5, and it goes 1, 2, 3. The letters are kind of intertwined, and so that's a choice. You have several different templates to choose from for creating different monogramming shapes. And so I guess there's 25 different templates here that we could choose from, and if I choose the different template, it'll show me here what it's going to look like. Now besides the template, we also have the frame, and so in this case you get to choose from a drop-down list, and there's really dozens and dozens of different frames and borders that can be chosen. So I'm scrolling through it quite quickly because there's a lot to use in that part. But once you choose, I guess, the embroidery frame that you want to, so I'll click on this one, then it shows it in the design. Now, because I've chosen a frame that has corners, then it shows me the visible corners, and so you can see right now that only this top right corner is visible. If I click on this corner, it's going to put the design in 2 corners. If I want, I can put the design in all 4 corners. So that's how the little interface works. You get to make all these different choices. So the template, the frame, what visible corners there are, the font you're going to use, letters you're going to use, and the size and whatnot. So once you're happy with your monogram layout, you're going to say next. And it's going to show you the color reduction window, and basically what it's done is it's the frame that we had was a 1-color object, and that's the pink, and the lettering is it's a different color, and that's in blue. And so we don't need to worry about changing the colors here, but this is where you could choose, for example, the palette. So right now it's set for RGB. If you knew specifically that you'd like to use a different brand of thread, and as you can see from the drop-down list, there's a very large list of brands of thread. So since I'm working on a Janome machine, maybe I want to use Janome brand of thread. So if I choose Janome brand of thread, then notice that the colors are becoming Janome thread brand. It's specifically quoting 217 sky and 265 crimson. And the whole color palette for this design will now be based on Janome colors. And you can use this to, I guess, reduce the colors to be like all one color in your design, or if you have lots of colors, you can like drag to, I guess, insert more colors in your design. So that's how you can control, I guess, the number of colors and the palette. And I'll just say finish. And that's it. The monogram's been placed onto my screen, and we could then do any number of things to it. So because we created the layout, it looks like this, but now these things become something that we can select and make further edits and modifications to. So maybe I'll just give a quick example of what that means. So this tool here is the rectangular selection tool, and with this tool I can click on an area of the design, and it gets selected, and you can tell it's selected because it gets a little rectangle box around it. So that's how I know what I have selected. And one thing I'll point out, so I have this object selected, and what I'm going to do is just show you close up here down at the bottom. What I have here is the object color is in this pink, and what you can see is that the object has a pink fill, and the fill is always the lower right hand portion of a color square. So I can see that this object is set for light, or for pink fill. Now looking at the object, and I'm going to scroll in even closer, you can see the stitches. There's no outline, and I can see that here the first, I guess, option on the color palette window is none. And so the pen, you can see the pencil or the pen, the outline is set to none. And just as an example, if I wanted an outline on this object, I could come into my color palette, and let's just say we wanted to put a dark blue outline around this shape. It's kind of a small shape, maybe it's not appropriate. Why don't I do this? I'll choose my selection tool again, and I'll come over and I'll click on the monogram. So now what I can see I've no longer got this selected. I can see that the lettering has become selected. And now if I look at the bottom, I can see that my lettering has a light blue fill and no outline. So I'll show you if I scroll in on those letters that, and I'll unselect them. You can see they're just simply light blue, no outline. So I'm going to go ahead and select the ABC again and decide to add an outline. And like I said, if I wanted to have, for example, a dark blue outline, I come to the dark blue color in the color palette, and I need to click, left click, click. If I click in the bottom right, I'm going to change the color of its fill. If I click in the top left, I'm going to add the color for the outline, and that's what I'll do. I'll click on the top left right now, and so now you can see a couple things that have happened. First of all, if you look down on the color palette at the bottom, we can see that the object that is selected is set for a light blue fill and a dark blue outline. And if I just click to let go of the selection, you can see now that the object has a dark blue outline and a light blue fill. Now, that's the colors and how you can, I guess, control the colors of this monogram. So what I'm also going to show is I'm going to again use my rectangle selection tool to select that ABC, and I can tell it's selected because it's got a box around it. Here is the object properties, and there's two tabs. You've got your fill stitch tab, and then you have your outline tab. And so I can see here on the outline tab that the outline set as a running stitch outline, and the other option would be to change it to a satin serial outline. Clicking on the fill tab, my options are satin stitch or a step or a weave fill for that. So just as an example, if I wanted to change the satin stitches to a step, I simply click on it and then it changes them into a step fill versus a satin fill. And I'm not sure there's enough space here to give a good satin outline, but what we'll do is try. So we'll go to the outline tab and change it from a running stitch to a satin serial outline, and then you can see here that it's created a satin outline for those letters. So that's, in very general terms, how you can create a monogram and then start to make edits to it. So I think what I'll do is just regather my thoughts and plan to come back and do another demonstration of going through these steps using the Artistic Monogram software. We're going to continue on with the quick start guide for Artistic Monogram software, and this time I'm going to start a new design. And we'll just go ahead and allow it to select some fabric. So we'll just go with the embroidery normal again, go with the blue fabric and say next. Now instead of choosing a new monogram this time, we'll just go with simply a new graphic. And it's got the embroidery hoop selected, and that's fine. I'll say finish. And so because we didn't choose the monogramming wizard, we just simply get an empty workspace, and there's my embroidery hoop, and I will be able to create lettering or monograms sort of individually. Now what I'm going to do is just choose the edit text tool, and it gives me in the tool options a font size and a font name, or I could choose the font if I wanted to, and I have options like bold and italic, and I'll talk later about smart text and how you can use that to I guess automatically have different things appear on your screen. But right now I'm just going to show you that what I need to do is simply click to decide where this text is going to go. So when I click, it puts a prompt sort of flashing on my workspace, and what I'm going to do now is type in my name, Trevor. And when I'm done, I can simply click on the rectangular selection tool to finish creating it and have it become selected. Now right off the bat here, I could do several things, I guess. First of all, whenever you have something selected with the rectangular selection tool and you get this box around it, I'm just going to zoom in and show you more about that. So I guess the first thing is, if I mouse up to this object and I get the little multi-directional arrow that looks like this, I can click and drag to move this object to any location. And notice that my hoop has a center line. These are guidelines, and I'll talk about guidelines again later in the video, but just to show, if I wanted to select this embroidery and then move it, it'll actually kind of snap onto the guidelines. So if you're trying to get something to align, the guidelines can be quite helpful to getting things aligned in your hoop. So there I just was able to very specifically put the word in the center of the hoop because of the guidelines that came with my embroidery hoop. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in over my word, again my name, and just show when it's selected. I can also use the handles. So if I come up to the corner, I already showed you I can move it. Now I also have handles on the corners and in the sides, and they have two different functions. So just as I mouse up to this corner, the first thing you're going to see is a rotation handle, and see how my mouse turns into what looks like a rotation mouse icon. If I move away, I go back to my regular sort of pointer. Now as I mouse up to it, there's the rotation. If I mouse continuing right to the corner, it changes to a sort of bi-directional arrow. So I'll do it one more time. As I mouse up, I have a rotation handle. If I get closer to the corner, I get the it's for resizing, the bi-directional arrows. And in this case, if I click now and drag, I can make it bigger, and it's making it bigger proportionally. If I come down, it's making it smaller proportionally. So I'm clicking and dragging to do this, and when I let go, it resizes it. So that's me transforming or changing the size of the object manually But if I want to, because it's selected, I also have the tool options, and in here I could say specifically what width or height I wanted this to be. So if I wanted it to specifically be 3 inches wide, I come here and type in 3 inches, and when I hit tab, it'll make that change. And because it's checked here as proportional, it always changes its size in proportion. If I uncheck proportional, then I could make it be specifically 3 inches by 1 inch, or whatever I wanted, and I'll get a specific height and width. So that's, I guess, a little bit about transforming the position and the size of your object. Now I'll click on it again to select it and show that if I come up to the corners, and when it's on the rotation handle, I can click and drag, and of course it will rotate that object to the specific angle that I move to. So when I'm done clicking and dragging, I let go and it finishes that. And the other thing that's noteworthy here is this little icon right in the center, that becomes the rotation point. So for example, if I click and drag that and put it, let's say, right here at the bottom of the T, and now if I go for a rotation handle, it's going to rotate around that point on the letter T, at the bottom of the letter T. So I'm able to rotate around any point in an object. The side handles, so the corner handles, they scale things. And see, now that it's not checked as proportional, if I come to the corner handle, I can stretch them proportionally, but I also have the ability to come to the side handles and stretch it. So I can stretch it out, or I can squish it down, and same thing on the side here. I can squish it in or longer. Now, just like the corner handles with two functions, the resizing and the rotating, on the side handles we have the resizing, and if I see how I get, just as I mouse up to them, I get this sort of different looking arrow, and that's for skew or like slant. So see, I can slant my letters. So those are the types of edits that you can make with the transform tool, and I'll come back to go over the transform tool again in an individual video clip, but I wanted to show how I could do that now. Before I go on, there's lots of interesting things that you can do with objects that are selected, and one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click over top of the object, and when I right click, it gives up an additional menu, and in this additional menu I have other options, like for example break apart. So right now what we have, I'm not going to do this just yet, what we have is one embroidery object, and with this embroidery object I can select it, and I can do, like I was just showing, move it or resize it or rotate it or skew it. Another option is the edit nodes tool. Now here I have the rectangle selection. Underneath that I have edit shape nodes, and I'm going to choose edit shape nodes. So first of all, the object is already selected. I can see that it's got a white fill, it's got no outline, and looking at the object properties I can see that it's in satin stitch. And now what I'm going to do, I have it selected, I'm going to choose edit shape nodes. So now you can see that the view has changed, and if I zoom in, what you'll notice is that every letter has a little handle, and I could click on that handle to move that letter to be anywhere I want to in the workspace. So I have the ability to customize the locations of the letters. Now I'm kind of making them go all sort of up and down on purpose. You don't have to do that. It may be, and why don't I just show how to use undo here. I'll use undo to make all of those edits that I just made go back to the way they were originally, and show, maybe you don't want to make it all kind of goofy like I did, and just simply choosing edit shape nodes, and then maybe it's just a matter of adjusting the spacing. So if I felt that there was too much space between the letter E and the letter V, I could move the letter V over and just nudge it a little bit and kind of reduce that amount of space. So that's one of the things that's great. And you can, for example, if I use my control key, I can control selecting more than one of these objects at the same time. Gives me the ability to move two letters at the same time. So yeah, that's the edit shape nodes. And again, I'll be coming back to all of these topics in sort of a little bit more detailed videos. So what I'll do now is I'll select the object again. So I'll just choose my rectangular selection tool, come and click on the object to select it. And this time I'm going to actually go ahead and right click and choose to break it apart. So if I choose break apart, what you'll notice now, all of the letters are selected, but what I'm going to do is just click away to unselect, and now I'm going to show with my selection tool that if I click on, for example, the letter E, that just the letter E became selected. So what was one word, one lettering object, has become individual objects for each letter. And so I can now modify one individual letter versus the whole word. And by modify, what I mean is I could actually resize the one letter, or another thing that's different once we've broken this apart and it's no longer kind of considered lettering and they're just individual objects. If I go to the Edit Shape Node tool now, instead of getting handles where I could move these letters around, I get the actual points that were used to create the letters, and I could move them. So for example, if I wanted to change the shape of the letter, I could make my letter have any shape I want. I could select on this node, hold my control key down, select on those two nodes, and you can see how I can change the shape of that letter, of that one object, because everything became an individually selected object. So now again with this selection, I'm going to select that letter T and show that if I'd like to change the way it appears, so right now I'd shown it's got a white fill with no outline. Well, maybe I'd like to give it a red outline, so I'll come up to the color red in my color palette, left click over the upper left hand side, and now my object has a white fill with a red outline. If I wanted to, I could come to my object properties. My fill is set as a step. That's great. Why don't I go to the tab for the outline and change it from a run stitch to a satin serial? If I take a close look, you can see that it's made a satin border for that letter T. Now, I can control the width of this outline in the tool options. So here I have an option for outline, and it's set at 0.01 of an inch. Well, first of all, I find inches to be a very convenient number to work with when you're talking about overall sizes like 3 inches wide or 4 inches wide. But sometimes when you're dealing with small measurements like the width of a column, working in inches can be difficult because you have to get involved with things like fractions. And in this case, I'm going to show you how you can change that. Now before I do, I'll just show you if I wanted to change the outline from 0.01, maybe I'd like to fatten this border up to be a 0.1 of an inch. So I'll change the number. I'll just type in 0.1 of an inch, hit tab, and you can see that it quite clearly fattened up that satin border. But while we're sort of on the topic, I was going to show under the Tools menu, we have an options box, and under the options box, one of the settings we have is the general tab, and in here we can control the measurement system. And so right now it's set as US, and I could change that to be metric. So if you prefer working in metric or US, that's where you're going to go to change that. And then now these things are still shown in inches, but I believe what happens is the next time I close the drawing software, the Artistic Monogram software, and start it up again, that it'll now take notice of that change and everything will switch to be in millimeters. So anyway, that's I think a conclusion for the quick start guide of using the software and just how to use the sort of basic functions of the program. Perhaps I'll do one more thing before I do finish off the quick start guide, and that is this. I wanted to show how to use the directions tool. So just as an example, I'm going to click on the letter T here again. We'll take a zoom in and take a look at the Weave Fill, and you can see here, remember the Fill tab was set as a step or a weave fill. And these are the weave fill patterns. So just as a side note, if I wanted to change the style of the stitching, I can click on a pattern and it changes the way that the stitches appear, the way that the needle penetrations go. If I go to something fancier like weave, then you get sort of a fancy weave pattern in your background. Now, what I wanted to show here was, maybe I'll go, sorry, what I wanted to show was the directions tool. So I have my object selected, and what I'm going to do is turn on the directions tool. And you'll notice right away that I get a little red dot, and what I can do is, so right now it appears like the weave fill is kind of going on this angle. If you wanted it to be on a different angle, you could click on the shape, drag it across, and see what it did. It changed the direction of the fill. So that's called your directions tool. And I'll show how to use the directions tool and all these other tools like the dividing tool and everything else that I haven't shown in the quick start guide. We'll go through again and in a little bit more detail in the individual video clips. So yeah, I think that's going to conclude the quick start guide to using Artistic Monogram software. And so now you can go ahead and review the individual video clips that will complement the quick start guide. One more thing I thought I would include as part of the quick start guide that I don't think I've spoken about yet. And again, of course, I'll be covering in an individual video clip, but I think it's worth mentioning how it is that I'm zooming in and out on my embroidery screen. So yes, we have a zoom tool, and we also have the zoom percentage button, but you'll notice that a lot of times the embroidery is moving closer and further away, and it appears like it's just happening, I guess, magically. But in reality, what it is I have a scroll mouse. And on my scroll mouse, if I scroll forwards, or I guess away from me, I get closer to the embroidery. And if I scroll down or towards me, then I go further away. And it sort of seems to interact with my mouse. So if I put my mouse over here and I scroll in, I scroll to that point. If I zoom out, I put my mouse over the center and I scroll in, I scroll towards that area. So I thought that was something that would be worthwhile mentioning during the quick start guide, so you would know how it was that I was able to maneuver around the designs, seeming like I wasn't using any of the tools on the toolbars. So I'll talk a little bit more about zooming in the individual clip for zooming and measuring, but I thought I would include that as part of the quick start guide. So yeah, now I'm going to go ahead and prepare for the individual clips.